Welcome to The Deep Dive. We're the show that tries to distill complex research into, well, clearer insights. Today, we're plunging right into the really high-stakes world of medical diagnosis. It's this incredibly complex cognitive process, always under pressure, short on time, and unfortunately, it carries a significant risk of error. Diagnostic errors really do lead to considerable patient harm. It's a huge issue. But then, AI comes onto the scene. Specifically, these large language models, things like GPT-4. They've absolutely captivated everyone with their ability to generate human-like text, solve complex problems, and sometimes even communicate with, well, surprising empathy. So naturally, the medical world is buzzing. What could this mean? So this deep dive today, it isn't just about the raw power of LLMs. A really critical question, the one we're grappling with is, does giving these tools to doctors actually make them better diagnosticians in the real world? And maybe even more fascinating, what happens when the AI takes a crack at these cases all by itself? The answers might surprise you, possibly counterintuitive even.
That's exactly our mission today.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've dug into a pretty rigorous study, multi-center, randomized using clinical vignettes to pull out the key insights. We're going to explore what it tells us about, human AI collaboration, especially in high-stakes areas like medicine. And we'll definitely get into the ethical side of things, integrating AI, plus some of the technical and statistical details that make this research particularly interesting. It's really not a simple story of AI replacing people. It's much more about understanding this evolving partnership. A very nuanced picture.
Okay, so let's unpack the study design then. How
Yeah.
did they actually set it up? They wanted to compare GPT-4's impact against like the usual tools doctors have.
Exactly. It was a meticulous approach, really. They recruited 50 U.S. licensed physicians, a mixed 26 attending physicians, 24 residents, and they came from internal medicine, family medicine, or emergency medicine backgrounds.
Right.
And these doctors were randomly put into one of two groups. The first group, the intervention group, they got access to GPT-4, specifically the Chat GPT Plus interface. And this was on top of their usual resources, things like up-to-date Google searches, the standard stuff. The other group, the control group, they were told very clearly, only use the conventional resources, no LLMs allowed for them. And the task, well, it was tough. Each doctor got up to 6 clinical vignettes. These are basically anonymized patient cases adapted from well-established diagnostic exams. They had 60 minutes total, and a really key detail here. These cases were based on actual patients picked specifically because they were challenging, and crucially designed so it was highly unlikely they were just floating around in GPT-4's training data. This was important for a fair test.
Okay, that makes sense. But getting the final diagnosis right is one thing. How do you measure the process? Diagnostic reasoning itself sounds, well, slippery, hard to pin down.
Ah, yes. And this is where the study gets technically quite sophisticated, I think. Their main measure, the primary outcome, wasn't just correct diagnosis, yes or no. Instead, they developed and validated this novel assessment tool. They called it structured reflection. And it was specifically designed to capture the whole reasoning process, how a physician thinks through a case. So it looked at things like, what plausible diagnoses did they consider? What evidence did they list for and against each one? What were the next steps they proposed? It gives you a much richer picture than just the final answer. More holistic.
Structured reflection.
Yeah.
Okay, but how do you score that? How do you put a number on something so complex? What did that grading look like?
Right. They had a detailed rubric for that. Points were given for different parts. So for each case, doctors could get up to 1 point for each plausible diagnosis they listed. Not just the final one, but any reasonable contender. Then the factors they listed supporting or opposing findings, those were graded from 0 to 2 points based on correctness. The final diagnosis itself carried more weight, 2 points if it was the most accurate, 1 point if it was plausible, but maybe less specific. And then the next steps they suggested, up to 3 of those were scored 0 to 2 points each as well. And to make sure the scoring was fair and consistent, multiple board-certified physicians graded the responses independently. They achieved what's called a weighted Cohen's kappa of 0.66.
Okay, 0.66. What does that mean in plain English?
That indicates substantial agreement between the graders. So different doctors looking at the same response tended to score it similarly. And they also measured internal reliability using Cronbach's alpha, which was 0.64. Basically, these numbers tell us that their structured reflection measure was pretty reliable and robust. We can have some confidence in it.
Okay, so a really careful setup, innovative scoring. The big question then, what were the results? Did giving doctors GPT-4 actually make a difference? Did it significantly boost their diagnostic performance?
Well, this is where things get pretty thought-provoking, actually. Let's look at that primary outcome, the diagnostic reasoning score. The group using GPT-4 had a median score of 76.3%, and the group using only the conventional resources, their median score was 73.7%.
So a bit higher for the GPT-4 group.
A bit higher, yes. The adjusted difference between them was only 1.6 percentage points. But, and this is the crucial part, the p-value was 0.60. That difference was not statistically significant.
Not statistically significant. Okay, so we can't really say GPT-4 improved their reasoning based on this study. The difference could just be random chance.
Exactly. Based on this data, we can't confidently conclude that giving physicians access to GPT-4 as an aid led to a measurable, reliable improvement in their overall clinical reasoning.
Wow. That's genuinely surprising, given all the hype around these models. What about other things? Like, were they faster? Did they get the final answer right more often, even if the reasoning score wasn't significantly better?
Yeah, they looked at those two as secondary outcomes. Efficiency, for instance, time spent per case. The GPT-4 group was faster. Median time was 519 seconds per case compared to 565 seconds for the conventional group.
Okay, so about, what, 46 seconds faster? Almost a minute?
The adjusted difference was actually calculated at minus 82 seconds per case, which, yeah, nearly a minute and a half in a busy clinic that could really add up.
Right.
However, again, this difference didn't reach statistical significance. The p-value was 0.20.
So suggestive, maybe, but not proven.
Precisely. It hints at a potential efficiency gain, but the study couldn't definitively confirm it statistically, and it was a similar story for final diagnosis accuracy. No statistically significant improvement there either. The GPT-4 group did have slightly higher odds, 1.4 times higher, of getting a more correct final diagnosis, but again, the p-value was 0.39. Didn't cross that statistical significance threshold.
So let me get this straight. Despite GPT-4's power, just giving it to doctors in this controlled setting didn't result in statistically significant improvements in their reasoning, their speed, or their final accuracy.
That's the bottom line for the physician-AI collaboration part of the study, yes.
That really does challenge some common assumptions, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It highlights that the connection between having a powerful tool and actually improving complex human performance, like diagnosis, well, it's not straightforward at all. It's clearly not just about the AI's capability on its own. It's about how it gets used, how it integrates.
But wait, there's a twist, right? Because the picture changes dramatically when you look at how the AI performed by itself. This is where it gets really interesting, maybe a bit mind-bending.
Exactly. This is the fascinating part. The researchers did a secondary analysis. They took the same clinical vignettes and prompted GPT-4 directly. No human doctor involved this time, just the AI answering the questions. And the results. Pretty striking. GPT-4 alone achieved a median score of 92.1% on that same structured reflection measure.
92%, wow. How does that compare to the humans?
Well, compare that 92.1% to the 73.7% from the human doctors using only their conventional tools. That's a difference of 15.5 percentage points higher for the AI alone, and that difference was statistically significant. The p-value was 0.03.
Hold on, so the AI on its own did significantly better than experienced doctors using their standard resources.
Yes.
And it also did significantly better than the doctors who actually had GPT-4 to help them. They scored around 76%, right?
That's correct. The AI alone outperformed both the control group and the intervention group where humans use the AI.
Okay, this raises a huge question. Why? Why would the AI do better alone than when it was assisting a human expert? That seems totally backward.
It does seem counterintuitive, doesn't it? And it gets right to the heart of the complexities here. Technical aspects, philosophical ones about collaboration. First, the study authors themselves point out what they call the vignette caveat.
The vignette caveat.
Yeah. They stress that the AI's top performance was on these curated, written vignettes. They had specific questions, relatively little noise compared to a real patient encounter.
Right. Real life is messy. Incomplete info, confusing symptoms.
Exactly. The AI was good at extracting information from a relatively clean signal. That's different from navigating the ambiguity and, frankly, the chaos of real-world patient care. So the authors are very, very clear. You absolutely cannot take this result and say LLMs should be diagnosing patients without human oversight. That's a critical ethical line.
Okay, so the clean data helps the AI shine. What else explains the gap?
Another major factor they propose is prompt engineering.
Ah, how you asked the question.
Precisely. For the AI alone part, the research team didn't just dump the vignette in. They iteratively developed and refined few-shot prompts, meaning they gave the AI examples, carefully crafted the instructions to guide it towards the best possible structured response based on their scoring rubric.
Like giving it a detailed recipe.
Exactly. Whereas the physicians in the study, they weren't given specific training on how to optimally prompt GPT-4 for this kind of structured reflection task. They just had access to it. This really suggests that just having the tool isn't enough. Knowing how to effectively communicate with the AI, how to ask the right questions in the right way, that seems crucial to unlock its potential.
So user skill matters.
A lot. Immensely. And that leads to the third point the authors emphasize, what they call the rich design space for exploring and enhancing clinician-AI interaction. It's not just about AI getting smarter. It's about how the AI's insights are presented to the doctor. When are they shown? How seamlessly does it fit into their workflow? Does it interrupt? Does it help? The design of that interaction, that human-computer interface, is critical. We need thoughtful, human-centered design to build true synergy.
So it's less about AI replacing doctors and much more about designing the collaboration itself.
That's the core challenge, yes. How do we design the systems, the workflows, the training, so that humans and AI genuinely augment each other's strengths? It's a profound design and philosophical question, really.
Okay, so connecting this to the bigger picture, what are the main takeaways here for the future of AI in actual clinical practice, and maybe even for how we train doctors?
Well, several things. Even though the overall improvements weren't statistically significant in this specific setup, the potential is still there. Think about that efficiency finding nearly a minute and a half saved per case, potentially. In incredibly busy clinical settings where diagnostic errors often stem from time pressure and cognitive overload, even potential gains in speed or accuracy warrant serious consideration.
If it can be done safely and effectively integrated.
Exactly. And that's the key integration. The study really hammers home that just providing access isn't the solution. Effective integration into clinical workflows without adding more burden to physicians is highlighted as a major barrier we need to overcome.
It has to be helpful, not just another thing to manage.
Precisely. And this points towards a bigger opportunity, maybe even a necessity, what the authors call deliberate consideration and redesign of medical education and practice frameworks. We might need to fundamentally rethink how we train doctors, how clinics operate, to make the best use of both human intelligence and computational power. How do we build systems that leverage both?
That sounds like a huge shift, a philosophical shift almost.
It is, and tied into that is the ethical dimension. As these AI systems get more powerful, potentially more autonomous, the study highlights an urgent need to ensure they are aligned with human needs, human values, human thought processes. This isn't just a technical checkbox, it's an ongoing ethical responsibility we have as we develop and deploy this technology, ensuring it serves humanity well.
Good points. And like any study, this one had its limitations too, right? Just to keep things in perspective.
Oh, absolutely. And the researchers were upfront about them. They focused only on GPT-4. Other models might perform differently. The doctors were a convenient sample, mainly from academic centers, so maybe not perfectly representative of all doctors everywhere. And yes, they used 6 vignettes per doctor, carefully chosen, challenging vignettes, but still a limited number compared to the vast range of cases in medicine. Though it's worth noting their approach is pretty standard for assessing human diagnostic skills, too.
Right. Important context. So let's try to sum up this deep dive. The really striking takeaway seems to be this paradox. GPT-4 alone aced the diagnostic tests on these vignettes, but just giving it to doctors as an assistant didn't significantly boost their overall reasoning or efficiency compared to their usual methods. It really shows that integrating tech effectively is complex.
That's exactly it. The nuance is just so critical here. The promise of AI in medicine, and likely many fields, isn't about wholesale replacement. It's about augmentation, about enhancement. And this study really spotlights where the work needs to happen. It's not just about building smarter AI, it's about optimizing that human-AI collaboration. That means focusing on things like how do we train people to use these tools effectively? Prompt engineering, for instance. How do we design workflows where AI fits in naturally? How do we truly understand the cognitive interplay between human experts and machine intelligence? It's really about learning how to partner with these powerful new capabilities. And that leaves us, and you, the listener, with a pretty important question to chew on, I think. In a world where AI is getting incredibly good at complex analytical tasks, what are the skills that humans need to cultivate? For doctors, for all professionals, really, how do we move beyond just using AI as a tool towards a truly synergistic, ethically sound partnership? How do we make sure that as AI gets more capable, it elevates human expertise rather than diminishing it? That's a profound challenge, stretching far beyond just medicine, and something we'll all need to navigate together moving forward.